All right, without further ado, we'll get on to our program for the day. I'd first like to introduce Mike Roberto. Mike Roberto is in his fifth, and he didn't put in here, final year, serving as superintendent for the Aurora City Schools, and has been in education for over 34 years. Mike spent 8 years teaching science in North Olmsted, Hudson, and Stowe prior to coming to the Aurora High School to teach science in 1999. Since that time, he has served in many capabilities in Aurora, including coach, advisor, teacher, assistant, principal of the Aurora High School, principal and assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, and now superintendent. Mike and his wife Lisa will be married for 30 years this March, and their adult children Brendan, Joe, Dominic, and Sophia are all Aurora High School graduates. Please put together your hands for Mike Roberto. I'll let you address that too.
All right, well, thank you. Let me start by first thanking the Chamber for the invitation to speak today on behalf of the Aurora City Schools. It is my distinct pleasure to represent our district. This year, as mentioned, this is my 25th and final year in Aurora. I will be retiring at the end of the school year, so this is also my last opportunity to share the state of the schools with you. So before I get started, though, I would like to I'd like to introduce our 5 board members, our leadership team. Though they could not be here this afternoon, not everyone could be here because of previous commitments, I would like to take a moment to recognize their support of our district. So please help me thank the President of Aurora Board of Education, Pam Mahalis, along with board members Molly Schneider and Jennifer Click, who are here today. Thank you. And then also thank you to Vice President Steve Sobalski and Board Member Mike Acom, who could not be here this afternoon. And then lastly, I'd like to recognize Assistant Superintendent Dr. Paul Milsatich and Director of Public Relations Stacy Deanna, who have joined us today. So thank you to those folks. So as mentioned, this is my 5th year as superintendent in the district, and therefore the 5th time I have presented the state of the schools. If you've attended these presentations previously, you will have noticed that much of what I share about the schools is repeated each year. And 2025 will be no different. So I hope I don't spoil the surprise by sharing that I'm happy to report that the state of the Aurora schools is strong. Similar to President Ronald Reagan's vision of America as a shining city on the hill, the Aurora City Schools can be described as a shining district on the hill. One that is illuminated by 5 stars in all 5 components of our state report card, as rated by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. As a reminder, 3 stars on this scale indicate that we meet state requirements. A 5 stars means that we significantly exceeded state expectations. So for the 3rd year in a row, the Aurora City Schools is one of only 6 school districts out of over 600 in Ohio that significantly exceeded state expectations for all 5 components on the state report card. So congratulations go out to the students, staff, and grades pre-K through 12 on this recognition. But the light of those stars is not the only bright spot in the Aurora City Schools. Moving beyond state recognition and therefore to national recognition, congratulations go out to the Layton Intermediate and Harmon Middle School staffs, as both schools were recently listed in the U.S. News and World Report's Best Elementary and Middle Schools, respectively. Layton was rated 264th out of over 3,000 Ohio elementary schools, and Harmon was ranked 31st out of 2,451 Ohio middle schools, putting it in the top 1.3%. The rankings, those rankings were determined by using data taken from the math and reading state tests and indicated by both proficiency and performance. Layton and Harmon joined Aurora High School, which was once again one of the best high schools in the United States, according to U.S. News and World Report. The U.S. News and World Report evaluated 941 high schools in Ohio, over 25,000 across the United States, to develop their annual rankings. Aurora High School has been ranked as the #1 school out of 52 high schools in the Akron metro area 3 out of the last 5 years, and falling within the top 2.1% of schools in Ohio, as well as 2.3% of all high schools across the country. So, thank you. But one of the reasons Aurora schools shine is because they provide many different opportunities for young people to learn and grow. Locally, our brightest light comes from the young people in the district who not only are learning in school, but making connections with the community outside of school. One of our goals as a district is to get the community into the schools and the schools out into the community. It is these school community connections created by our students that strengthen the bond between the city of Aurora and the Aurora City Schools. I would like to take a moment to share just a few of the 67 events that took place during just the first semester of the school year, which were designed to nurture these school community connections. In October, we held the first annual Layton Family Pancake Breakfast that ended up hosting over 300 parents and community members who not only came for breakfast, but also had the opportunity to take a student-led tours of Layton's nature trail, gardens, and dock. Craddock Elementary staff held their annual Veterans Day celebration on November 11th. Veterans and their families filled half of Craddock's gym, with the first and second graders taking up the second half. Veterans from the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard were honored and entertained with a few musical numbers from the kids. The Harmon Student Council collected nearly 600 coats and blankets for their annual Coats for Kids collection, which benefits kids and families in need in Portage County. And at the high school, the AHS Interact Club held its annual Rake and Run event this fall. At this event, approximately 60 students woke up early on a Saturday morning to help over 50 different senior citizens of the Aurora community clear their yards of leaves. This is always a well-received service from the schools to the community. And the school community connections were further nurtured this year through the newly formed AHS Cybersecurity Advisory Council. The council is composed of 16 individuals from local tech companies, universities, city representatives, and of course the ACSD staff. This group is collaborating to help support cybersecurity instructor Nick Cucarola design meaningful experiences for our new cybersecurity program, which is one of only 5 such high school programs in Ohio and 31 across the nation. Of course, it is important to recognize the entire Aurora community who came together last year to help raise donations for the Layton Interactive Playground, which opened this past fall. This playground allows students with disabilities to play with typical peers on the same equipment while at recess. So as you can see, describing the Aurora City Schools as a shining district on the hill is not hyperbole. The school's foundation is strong thanks to our connections to the community, which help us to create nurturing learning environments that help Aurora learners be future ready. Now, as mentioned earlier, these strengths and the positive effect they have on our students are a common theme of the district that has been shared in the past. But lately, I've had multiple people ask me if the new universal school vouchers have impacted the Aurora schools. To answer that question, I would like to focus not on the strength of the district on the hill, but instead the condition of the hill in which the district lies. So let me start by sharing a story. When I first became principal of Aurora High School in 2011, the Aurora City School Districts earned the highest rating on the state report card of excellence with distinction and received 27.8% of its revenue from the state of Ohio. 10 years ago, when I became assistant superintendent, the Aurora City Schools received straight A's on the state report card, which was the highest rating at the time, and received 24% of its revenue from the state. So that's a loss of almost 4% from 4 years earlier. This past year, as mentioned, the Aurora City Schools was recognized as one of only 6 districts in Ohio to earn 5 stars in all 5 categories in the state report card 3 years running. This again was the highest rating for the state, yet we received only 18.1% of our revenue from the state, demonstrating another erosion of state support. This example reminds me of watching news reports after a hurricane or flood, where those videos of the huge multi-million-dollar mansions that extend over an eroding cliff due to the hill being washed away over time from severe conditions. It doesn't matter how much money or time was put into that mansion or how solid the foundation was. If the hill it was built on, it no longer supports that foundation. We've all seen it happen. Eventually, over time, the structure collapses from lack of support. Public education is that hill that the Aurora schools have sat upon since the foundation of the first log cabin schoolhouse in Aurora in 1804. In fact, public education is the centerpiece of the Ohio Constitution, which instructed the state to, quote, secure a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state, unquote. Yet, support for public education in Ohio is eroding, and I fear that no matter how strong the Aurora City schools are, we eventually are going to run the risk, like that teetering mansion on the cliff, of collapsing due to lack of support. Now, like all of us, the state of Ohio has a budget to consider, and over the years they have tightened their belt when it comes to public school funding, and this has led to the aforementioned reduced revenue over the years. But that's understandable in a struggling economy. What's harder to understand is that just this last year, while revenue from the state for public schools like Aurora continued to decline, the state spent over $970 million, nearly $1 billion, for new universal school vouchers under the expansion of Ohio's Ed Choice program. So for those of you who don't know, school vouchers are public funds that help parents pay for private education, ostensibly to give poor children and low-performing public schools the chance to attend private schools. Now, these vouchers have been in Ohio since the end of the last century. Universal school vouchers are new, and then they allow any student, no matter their parents' income and no matter the school's performance, to use public funds for a voucher. The voucher amount varies, but a family of four making up to $135,000 a year qualifies for a full voucher. That's about 70% of the families in Ohio. The other 30% of families making more than $135,000 per year can receive vouchers at a reduced rate. So at the high school level, the cost for a fully funded voucher would be a little over $8,400 per student, plus another $1,400 for administrative fees, adding up to $9,800 per student for each voucher from the state. The Aurora City Schools receive approximately $2,000 per student from the state, and no administrative fees are applied. So to be clear, this is a $7,800 funding difference from the state in favor of each young person from Aurora who uses a voucher versus a young person from Aurora who attends the public high school. In Aurora, we went from an average of 2 students over the last 3 years taking a voucher to 78 this year applying for and receiving a universal voucher. That is over a 2,500% increase, yet when the difference between our class size of our outgoing seniors and incoming kindergartens is taken into account, our current enrollment in the district continues to increase. So as it turns out, the majority of students in Aurora whose families received the voucher were already attending a private school. In fact, across Ohio, the $970 million of public schools funds used for vouchers went to approximately 10% of the population who, like in Aurora, were previously attending private schools. Now, I acknowledge the estimated cost of educating more than 80% of the students in Ohio who attend a public school is a big investment. But please understand that $970 million of public funds spent on vouchers for approximately 10% of the student population in Ohio will cover almost half of the cost of the projected needs of the Fair School Funding Plan. The argument is parents should have a choice on where their students attend school, and I do not disagree with that argument. Parents should have that choice. This is not a public school versus a private school argument. It's simply about the need to adequately fund a thorough and efficient system of public schools, such as the Aurora City Schools. So what does that mean for the state of the Aurora schools? Well, it's important for you to know that even though the state of the Aurora schools is strong today, the current erosion of public education will eventually have us hanging over a cliff, which will ultimately negatively impact our kids from an academic to an athletic to the arts and to a transportation standpoint. It's also important for you to know that delaying this erosion will either require a heavier burden on the local community or a change of mindset from the state regarding public schools, public school funding in particular. Lastly, it's important for you to know that Paul Milsitich, as superintendent of the Aurora City Schools, and the staff of the Aurora City Schools will need your support next year, and the support of the entire Aurora community if they are to continue to provide a strong learning environment for the young people attending the Aurora City Schools. So as I pass the microphone over to Ann, I am confident that she will agree that the schools in the city enjoy a symbiotic relationship in which each benefits from the strength of the other and feels the impact of our shared struggles. My hope and wish for this great city and our shining district on the hill is to continue to collaborate and illuminate the lives of Greenmen far into the future. We are deeply committed to protecting and promoting the strengths of Aurora, and undoubtedly one of them is the Aurora City Schools. I'm honored to have led this wonderful school system in such a great community, and we appreciate and need the amazing support you give Greenman Nation. Thank you for allowing me to share the current state of the Aurora City Schools with you this afternoon, and as always, go Greenman.